Hey, 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 what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 108 of the White Knuckle Podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast. I am joined tonight by a guest that's been on our show a couple times, and he seems to have had a horseshoe up his rear end the last year, or maybe even the last couple of years, or he's just good at what he does, and that is none other than Scott Buckley. You'll remember Scott from our public land podcast last year, and then a podcast that Todd and I did. Todd turned me on to Scott just because of their connection via social media, and Todd always talked about you, Scott, and held you in high regard in the bucks that you killed. How's it going tonight?
Good. How's it going, Jason?
It's going well. So let's get right to it. We've been talking about trail cameras and how they use them, and we're going to sort of transition at some point in this show to just deer hunting technique. But first of all, let's let the listeners hear how you did last year.
Oh, best year ever. I killed 3 great bucks here in Iowa. Killed 2 with my statewide tags, and then I took the last one of the year with my landowner's tag on my own place. The first 2 were on public. I guess I started the season. I usually get an early muzzleloader tag here in Iowa. It's just a resident tag. You can pick early muzzleload season for you're allowed 1 gun tag. So usually I pick that early muzzle tag, and most of the time I hunt on public land with it. I've killed some really nice bucks during that season. It's usually around the middle of October, the 15th, 16th, in that slow period, October lull or whatever you want to call it. You got to get pretty close to their bedding areas. And lots of time, it helps if you got a cold front, to get them up out of their bed that time of year. But, yeah, I think... Well, it's a week long. It starts on a Saturday and goes through the following Sunday, 8 days or whatever. So, yeah, I think I hunted first couple days, didn't see much. And I think I took a couple days off work that week. I know it was the middle of the week. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. I hunted my place a couple days. I was after a certain buck, but he wasn't moving. And I decided to go down to a piece of public that I killed a 170-inch buck a few years ago, and I'm pretty familiar with it. We've taken a few deer down there. And where I was going to go, it was an acorn flat. And I knew I was right. I've had cameras in there a lot in the past, and I knew it was a lot of October movement back in this acorn oak grove, and so it was probably 1.5 miles back from where I parked, and I just started back along the trails back there and probably got about 1 mile back. And I mean, this hunt was just pure luck. Wasn't much to it. I'm walking in on this old logging trail, and I just see movement probably 50, 60 yards in front of me. And there's like a lagoon or creek or something back in there, and he was on the bank of that. And I just seen a movement. I stopped. I hit my binoculars. He had his head down, and I seen two spikes. I thought, man, it's a big spike horn, but I wasn't sure. Just something didn't look right. And so yeah, I just stood there and watched, but he kind of disappeared. So I figured he went down that creek bank there. And I stood there for a few minutes, nothing. So I moved in real slow. I had the wind in my favor. Moved in real slow, went another 15, 20 yards, glassed, nothing. I figured he was down in that lagoon or whatever. It's probably 30 yards wide. and probably had 2-3 feet of water in. And anyways, yeah, and all of a sudden I looked and he was going up the opposite bank, and it wasn't no spike. I think what I seen was his G2s. He had his head down and his G2s were sticking up. And I said, holy crap, he's a good deer. And immediately, I think I popped the binoculars up just to verify he was a good one. And it was probably a 70-yard shot with my muzzleloader. Shoot the Acra, CBA Acra. And I shot, and he appeared to be hit just by the way he ran, but he was on the other side of this big waterway. He ran, and the last I'd seen him, probably ran 50, 60 yards. His tail was wagging, so I figured I had a good hit, but I wasn't positive. So I backed out and went back early the next morning with a couple buddies, and we got across that creek. We had to take the long way to get across it. And there he was. He just went a little ways, and he was a beautiful, at least 5-year-old buck. 162, 163 gross. Just my score, nothing official. And, just elated, nice buck on public. Never even made it back to my hunting spot. But so, yeah, that was buck number one.
I remember seeing that Facebook post. It was very short and to the point. You could tell you were out in the timber probably when you made it. And it was pretty cool. I can remember just checking my phone all the time, looking to see what you'd gotten.
Yeah, I was stoked. Just how it all came together. Warm night, I thought, well, I'll go in deep, in this timber. And because I figured nothing would be out in the field. It was just a warm night. And that's what I figured he did. He'd just come out of his bed. He was laying against that creek bank. When I seen him, he had just stood up. He was laying he was watching anybody coming from the east, I guess. And he had his back to this creek, and the west winds were coming from that way. And I just happened to see him before he seen me. It was, total luck, but pretty amazing hunt. And the next day it was a chore getting him out. The next morning he was such a big bodied deer.
He was a tank.
Took this new we took this deer cart back, brand new deer cart. It was a cheaper one that I bought. And we got him put on that, and the damn thing broke right in half. And I'm like, oh, geez, what are we going to do now? Well, I've quartered some up before in the field and ended up, we had no other choice. I had knives, and I took some bags with me, and we quartered them up, caped them, took all the meat, and we had 3 of us. And actually, to save us going around about quarter mile of water, we waded. We got a lot of cool pictures in the video. We waded right through that water. It was up to my stomach almost. We're taking meat and the cape, and it was pretty interesting. Then what we had a half of a deer cart. We got on the other side of the waterway and loaded that all up with everything and got them out of there. But it was pretty exciting. And so that was that deer. And that was the middle of October. I think I got back to work for a while. Then I think I started getting serious again that last week. A few days later, might have hunted my place a couple times, but I checked my cameras on a piece of public. And there was a certain deer that was a big deer, and I didn't know he was in there. So I thought, well, I'm going after this deer. It was one of the bigger deer I've ever seen. And I went after him, and I think I hunted a couple weekends, didn't see hardly nothing, maybe a spike horn, or I think it was one weekend, the last weekend of October back in there where I had a picture of this big one. And maybe a couple does, couple button bucks that weekend. And I kept moving kind of in closer and put cameras kind of further up following this creek system to keep my scent down and just not booger up the area too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was November. I think killed this next buck in the 5th. But I think the 4th, I went in deep along this creek. It was raining, cold. That was a hell of a start that morning. I accessed some of this land through a quad because the roads were muddy, and my quad had a flat tire. I was out switching that morning in the rain, and just it started all bad. And finally got over there and walked probably three-quarter mile back into my spot for a north wind up along this creek, and I took a rain suit, and I kept some of my warm clothing in my backpack because it was raining when I left. And I thought, well, this rain suit, if I get soaked through, eventually if it quits, I can get into my warm gear. Well, it rained through 10 o'clock or so. I think it was about 10. I looked across the creek. I'd seen a few nice bucks that morning cruising through on the other side of the creek. And maybe about 10 o'clock, just kind of quit raining, and I looked up, and all I seen was tines, huge brow tine buck come through maybe 100 yards away. I tried grunting, rattling. He wouldn't respond. He just kind of come through. He looked a couple times, went up the hill. And that was it for I ended up sitting all day. It was just frozen, and it was an all-day sit for me. I was cold, wet. Luckily, I brought some of them fresh clothes that I got into, but I think I see another couple nice bucks that evening on the other side of that creek. Well, I was hunting that stand with a north wind. My phone service wouldn't work down there, so I texted my son. I said, what are the winds supposed to be tomorrow? Like mid-afternoon, I texted him. He said southeast. I said, well, that's perfect for the other end where I seen all these bucks come out of. So, I'd never been in there where I'd seen the bucks, but I got down maybe 40 minutes before dark when the deer movement kind of slowed down a little bit. And I think I had my lone wolf steps. I went down the creek in my little portable stand, went down the creek, kind of snuck into that north end that butts up to some creeks. For a southeast wind, I thought this is perfect if them bucks use the same, where I seen them coming out of, that day. And it was getting dark. I found a tree, and I didn't, I was hoping I'd get shooting lanes and stuff. And I put my stand up in the dark, steps, marked it, and got out of there. Went back home, got back the next morning, crawled into that tree, and it was perfect. South wind kind of dumped out behind me in the creek, and kind of looking around, and, I was there was some deer trails, but it looked like most of them were up ahead of me, and sitting there, I don't know, maybe it was 8-9 o'clock. I seen maybe a 150-inch 9-point. I've seen him the day before. He was chasing a doe around, and they got within probably 60 yards of me, and it was I've only seen it happen 2-3 times in my life, but this was close. I'd seen him way off in a field or something. He bred her probably 60 yards away from me. He cornered her in a brush pile, and he bred her right there. So it was pretty cool. And so yeah, that had me pretty stoked. And trying to think, it was kind of raining a little bit that day too, November 5th. And I think it got kind of slow after the morning, seen a couple small bucks. I think it was about 3 o'clock, kind of up the hill. I rattled. I think I rattled. Or no, I didn't rattle first. That was it. I just kind of seen movement up on the hill, and I started glassing because I could see a tree moving back and forth. And I think it was a buck rubbing a tree. So I thought, well, I'll try rattling. This is where it gets interesting. I rattled, I think grunted, and all of a sudden, not 2 minutes later from where I'd seen that buck up, I couldn't tell how big he was. I just seen, antlers 100 yards away up on this thick stuff. And all of a sudden, here comes this 3-year-old, I don't remember, 8, 9 point, come burning down the hill towards me. And he's kind of starting to cut behind me to get my wind, you know. And as he's doing that, I look up on the hill where he came from. Here comes 2 more bucks. One is that 150-inch plus 9 point that bred that doe that morning. And the other one is that big brow time buck that I'd seen the day before, and like my jaw just dropped. They're all coming down to my rattling. And the thing was, I was a wreck because here comes this 3-year-old, you know, circling behind me, and I'm thinking, great, he's going to get behind me and win, and, you know, they're all going to take off. And so, yeah, here the 2 bigger ones are coming down, and the other one is he's getting close to getting behind me. And I think, yeah, he circled behind me, and then I'm watching the other bucks, and all of a sudden he snorted and he shot right under me and headed south. Well, the other bucks up on the hill, I don't think they really knew it was danger. They just kind of seen him run, and they were in that fighting mood. And the 9 point was the closest. He started coming after the other one bolted. He kind of come down, and he spotted me up in the tree. I was just in a really wide open tree, and the biggest one was still up on the hill. And that 9 point kind of seen me, and he was getting nervous, and all of a sudden he bolted too and took off. Well, the really big one's 40, 45 yards away. And I thought, well, he's kind of getting nervous. I didn't want to take a shot because he was kind of quartering to me. So I kind of waited. And then he kind of slowly turned, and I pulled back and let her fly, and I missed him. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I missed him the first shot. At like 40 yards plus, I missed him, and I don't really think he knew what was happening. He just was watching the other bucks run here, run there, and you know, he knew something wasn't right. When I shot, you know, he just kind of bolted, and I didn't really know if I hit him or not, but so I'm just kind of watching him, you know, up here I didn't think I hit him, but I'm just kind of watching him. He kind of slowed down, walked up the hill, and that was it. I said, great, I just blew that one. And so yeah, I waited maybe 7-8 minutes. I said, what the heck? Let's try to rattle and just see. Maybe he wasn't spooked. See if I can get him to come back down. And so I did a rattling sequence again, take a couple grunts, and I'm watching up the hill where he went. All of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, down this bottom where the other ones ran, I see a deer coming at me full blast. I mean, running into me. And I look, and it was him, the big one. He must have circled back down the hill, and he was coming right up the bottom to me after I missed him. I mean, I had a pretty lucky year. And here he comes, you know, burning, and he got 16, 17 yards coming right to me. I had a trail camera I set that morning right there in front of me. You know, I got bored in the middle of the day, and I kind of walked behind me, and I pulled one of my cameras I had in the ditch, and I put it right in front of me. And, you know, just whatever reasons, you know. Mm-hmm. And anyways, he walked right in front of this trail camera, and I think he sensed something. I don't know if my wind swirled a little bit, or he caught where I crawled up in this tree and put this camera. I don't know, but he sensed something. He put on the brakes. He kind of turned sideways at 15 yards, and I pulled back and, you know, let him have it and hit him perfectly. And he probably went 80 yards, watched him fall, and you talk about stoked. It was, you know, an hour or so before dark, got down, took a few pictures by myself. And, he ended up, I don't know, he had 10.5-inch brow tines. I think he has 13, 14 scoreable points, scored mid-70s or so. And, beautiful public land buck. I just was blessed. Filled my early gun tag. My bow tag was filled now. And, went and got a couple buddies, and we went back in, and I went back home, went back in and got them out. And, just an incredible, usually as a rule, I usually get one good buck a year. The last 11 years I've been here in Iowa, I've killed, every year but one, I've killed a good buck with my bow, except one. So I had 2 bucks on the ground and kind of went back to work and worked for a little bit. And then I started hunting my own land. I got 240 acres in south central Iowa, and all my statewide tags were used, but I still, being a landowner, had a landowner's tag. So I got the late season muzzle tag, and I had some really good bucks coming into my food plots, and I think it was after Christmas, maybe. I think it was the 27th, 2 days after Christmas. Went back to Michigan for the holidays, and left day after Christmas. Come down here, and my dad came back out with me. He lives in Michigan. My brother came out, friend of his, Rick Fair, and my son was out, and we were just going to hang out. None of them were hunting. They just came out. My brother wanted to do some scouting on some of the public lands, and they did a little bird hunting. And anyway, so I had some really nice bucks coming into my food plots, and it was the 27th. I usually don't hunt mornings in the late season by food. But the situation I had, they were coming into this one food plot, turnips and beans and just a bunch of stuff in this one food plot I had, and they were hitting it heavy. I had a Spartan cell cam, and I could kind of tell, keeping a pretty good eye on them. There's 2 or 3 really good deer, but that night it was really, really windy, and I thought, well, I have a stand about maybe 200 yards away from that food plot, and the wind, if it's still windy in the morning and the wind was good, I couldn't sit on the food plot because it was always full of deer first thing in the morning. But if I got downwind and a couple hundred yards from it, maybe I could catch one of these big ones, cutting back, heading into the bedding area. So that was my plan, and it was real windy. It was 20-mile-an-hour winds, 15 to 20 that morning, and I took my quiet cat. We got quiet cats here we use on the property to access it, just keep the noise down, and I got that, kind of drove that up the hill, and started walking into my blind, and it was a box blind that I'd built, and all of a sudden, coming up to the blind, a deer snorts. I said, oh, shoot, this might not have been a good idea. I didn't expect them to be by my blind, I thought, well, this is great. They're going to booger all the deer in a food plot. It's 45 minutes before light, but so I kind of could see a movement up by my blind, and I said, great. I just froze, waited. I think I moved off. I started going. I had to cut across the brush road to get up my ladder, and I look. There's a line of deer coming from that food plot right to me. I mean, there's probably 10, 15 deer, and I said, oh, my gosh, this was a bad move. Now I really boogered this food plot up. I shouldn't have came in here this morning. And, they all, they're all watching me. I slowly climbed up the ladder, and deer are running and spooking and snorting, and they couldn't smell me, but, they see me. I said, this was a bad move.
Right.
I said, I waited for weeks to hunt this food plot, and I should have just stuck to my plan and hunted that evening when it was fresh. And here's deer boogering everywhere. Well, got up in the stand. There's snow, wait for it to get light, and I could still, see deer kind of moving around up by the food plots. I didn't spook them all, but I figured, the bucks, after all that commotion, they're usually a little bit smarter and take off. But yeah, I'm sitting there. I think maybe about 8 o'clock, plenty light. I seen a really nice buck I could only see a part of the food plot, just the one edge, then it kind of dropped off, just the very edge. But I could still see deer moving around up in there, about 200, 250 yards out, maybe 300 yards. And I said, well, maybe there's a small chance, because I had does. Does kind of the whole time continued kind of to work. They were working my way and kind of, I had a few does come by me, and so that was good. I seen so many deer that morning. And then I think it was about 8:20. I look, and here comes a buck out of that food plot coming my way, and I flipped up the binoculars, and and I recognized him, and I'd never seen him, but I just had pictures. He moved into my place maybe the last few days of November from my cameras. He didn't live there, but he came in first part of December, probably the food I had on the farm there, and he was hanging out. And yep, he come kind of like on a string right to me. He got to the draw in front of me, and he turned kind of to head, into a bedding area, and he stood there and gave me about a 60 yard shot. And he ran. I tell by that shot, it was a good solid shot. He ran 40 yards, stood there on my lane. I watched him. He started stumbling and went over. And yeah, I was stoked. That was about 170 inch, probably at least 5-year-old buck. 10-point frame. He had, like, his one brow was like a turkey foot, had 3 points coming off it. The other brow was broke off. Real heavy deer. Yeah, my family was here. I called them, and they got in their truck and could drive right up to them down the lane, and got to celebrate it with my dad and brother from Michigan. And yeah, it was just the climax to the season. It was just incredible. I've never experienced that good a year, and especially having my, family here. And, it was, yeah. So my average out of 3 bucks, my average score was probably up around 170. And for the, she took average of 3 of them, and it was just, and I think the archery buck, I think, was probably a 4-year-old deer. But the other 2 were 5 years old plus. So maturity wise, not only did they score good, their age was really good. And, yep, I'll probably never repeat a year like this one again. It was just pretty incredible. The year I had, yeah, I'm excited for, this year. Been doing food plots, and gives me that extra drive. Had quite a few bucks survive on, through camera work. Mm-hmm. A lot of bucks survived, even on the public land pieces. I run trail cameras, right through February, March, just to kind of see. I got quite a few cameras, and I got a lot of nice cameras, different brands. And, but I was trying to find this one deer, one buck I was after, a big buck. And I thought, I got to saturate these areas with cameras to see if I could find them. And a buddy of mine told me about them cheap Tascos, $28, $29 Tasco.
Yep.
And, yeah, so I ended up, he showed me some pictures, and I'm like, come on, really? So I went out and bought 2, 3 of them, And actually, they work pretty decent. I mean, for the price. And I knew I had to saturate these public land areas where I'd seen this big deer. If I was going to try to pattern them or just something, knowing that he survived. So I ended up buying 21 of them Casco cameras throughout the fall and winter. And I just put them everywhere out there. And you can't imagine the intel I picked up. I let them sit out there till March, and I only got one stolen. Cause I started this year too. I kind of got that idea from the hunting public guys. Friends of mine. Yeah. They started putting them in trees. You take a couple lone wolf steps or whatever you got, and I got a lone wolf step, and I take them out and I'd mount them up in trees. And that's what I did with all of them, because I knew they'd be sitting there. I started putting them out after, in November, some of them, and then I got more and more as the season went on. But because I'd already killed my deer, so I was just putting out cameras and yeah, the information that I collected, even their cheap cameras, and I had a few. They're real sensitive. They, if the tree was moving or a branch, there was probably 4 or 5 of them that just took numerous shots and ran out of card or battery. They're not the best, but the vast majority of them serve the purpose. And I had quite a few mature bucks when I pulled cards in the spring, quite a few mature bucks that survived on these public land areas, and gives me kind of some hope to, hunt. And that's kind of what me and the boy have been doing the last 3 weekends. That's what we've been doing. We've been going back out, some of these public pieces and just putting out cameras and some of the areas and just covering every trail. Creek crossings are a real good place. You can see where their trails are beat down across them creeks. And so we just kind of, put them up in the tree and pointing down at them creek crossings. Sometimes in the summer, it gets tough to see deer trails and such.
Right.
But you can hit them creek crossings, and, if you got them in your area and public lands, those are great, because them trails are always there, crossing them sandy creek beds. And so that's kind of what we're concentrating on the last couple of weeks. We just walk up and down these big creek systems, wherever we see good deer trail, put a camera up in the tree. And I got all the cheap Tascos, some of my Browning and Bushnell, or even Exodus. I took out some Exodus, and we're just kind of same thing, just trying to monitor the deer. And one area I found a 6-point shed on one side. He's probably, if he had both sides, he was probably a 185-inch typical. If the other side was a match that was on public land. So yeah, kind of excited for the new year to start. And
so I want to get into your trail camera technique, because it's definitely part of the equation for you, is it not?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's
how big.
It's huge.
It is. Okay.
I would say it's a huge part. I can't tell you a percent, but a huge part into if it verifies if there's big deer in the area. I'm hunting. Yeah, sometimes people say, well, the deer always move off into different, they get summer pictures, but they move off into another area. That's true with some deer. Every deer is different. I got deer on my place that take off every year in September, October, and other deer move in, but a lot of deer will stay. And then I can build that history, even on public land. Like a newer place I'm hunting, I'm starting to build history. I know what, if, like all the bucks I had last winter, I started putting out cameras in, November. I had a couple of them, October, but then I'll see when we start pulling cards, I'll see if they're in there this summer. And what I'm doing, I'm building history on them. I can tell what if them same bucks are staying there year round, if they're moving. Cameras play a huge part. And I'm not one of them that go out check them every week. I put cameras out last 3 weekends, and some of them might sit 6-7 weeks. I'm no hurry. The only thing I'm afraid of, if they malfunction or they get stolen, you lose all that information. But I'm kind of being a little more, hiding my cameras a little better. And there's not a lot of people out this time of year. I don't have too much of a problem this time of year. You get closer to hunting season, that's when you might lose a card or a camera. But I'll collect so much information, especially with just boogering the area up with cameras, and I'll go back and just look at all that intel, kind of, even if it's not short term, it's like I said before, it's long term. I'm building the history with these different deer, even if it is on public. Some people can't understand that. They build history with deer on private land pieces, but I've done it numerous years on public land. There was big 9-point a few years ago, the same area where I killed a 173 inch 11, 12 point a few years ago with my bow. There was this other 9-point in there. I had pictures and sheds off him, like 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. And then I think he was going on his 7th year, and I wasn't hunting in there as much. I didn't find his sheds that winter before, but I had pictures of them, and I didn't get any more intel. But even on public land, sometimes I can get, I just kind of build history with them, see how they're traveling, see if they're moving from their summer patterns, see if they're moving. A lot of bucks will stay in them same areas. Some of them move. It's hard to say, but.
You mentioned so it sounds like you use what I would call a shotgun approach, and scatter them around, and then so you wait 6-7 weeks, conceivably at some time. The date probably starts with August or early September. You pull the card. Let's assume that let's just use one camera for instance. You've got a good buck on there. Public or private, what do you do next? Because one of the things that the resounding theme that I've picked, or not theme, but the resounding opinion that I've got is that getting a deer in August, July, September, whatever, early in the season like that is really just hopes and dreams that they're going to be in that area come October 20th or November 1st. And I know that can be true for any deer, even if they are there up till November 1st. They could be gone, shortly after that. But what's your take on that? And then if you could just, I guess, give us a little bit of insight into what your thought process is.
Let's say I go in and check these cameras in 1st August. If I got a shooter buck, a really good buck, couple of them, on a camera, first thing I do is try to, most of them keep the same antler characteristic. Sometimes they change a little bit, so you really got to look at them. But if I know it's a buck that's, been there the year before, then I already got intel or October, November. If it's a brand new buck and he's there, I just, keep that information.
Okay.
That would be the 1st of August. I just, it depends on, if he's a giant buck, I might put a few more cameras, nonchalant, try not to get too excited. If he's super giant, like I've had a couple in the past, but I don't want to booger the area up, even if it is summer, but I want to collect more information. So I'll put out, more cameras, or if I already got enough there, I just let it, sit for another month. Maybe, I don't know, September 1st, or usually I try to, if I'm getting some big buck pictures, then I'll try, because our season here opens on October 1st.
Right.
I'll try to get out that last 10 days of September and check them cameras. That plays a lot in the, even if I don't have a buck picture in August, that last 2 weeks of September, those are the most important cards that if you can have a pattern going, right close to October 1st. If I, lots of times I've had bucks that there they are, they start making patterns, and you look if they're coming in daylight hours. A lot of my public land stuff is really deep, so you're right, lots of times real close to the bedding areas if you're getting them on cameras. So
sure
that, if he's on that camera numerous times, it's August, September, he's close, and I go set up on him October 1st, and it's paid off a couple times. That one I just mentioned a few minutes ago, that 173-inch one I shot on public, that I had pictures of him pretty regularly, and I think it was October 3rd. I snuck up a creek bed and kind of circled around the ridge, and I'd placed a stand in there, a week or so prior, and crawled up in her, and he came right up, just from my cameras where he was crossing quite a bit down in there, and he come right up that point right to me in the morning, come out of the, the feeding areas, and I killed him. But them early ones are the most predictable if you do get them on camera. But that's when some of them, around that October 1st will go to different areas. They, you'll lose some, but it's, that's just a chance you got to take. If I got a big one, I'm going to try hunting them, especially if I got them numerous times. But, some of them will up and disappear, usually about that October 1st, middle of September. That's when they disappear and head to another area. But does that answer your question a little bit? Or
yeah, it does. It sounds like you put a lot of stock in what those cameras are telling you even earlier in the year. So because of the fact, if I'm understanding you correctly, because of the fact you're putting a lot of effort in that early, first couple days in the season in Wisconsin, it opens around the 15th. There's a good chance that those deer will be,
oh yeah,
in that same summer area. They do leave from time to time, but nothing is absolute. I guess the one absolute in hunting these whitetails is that there is no absolute. So it sounds like you actually put a ton of stock into what you're finding. And do you just put any cameras out in an area and just let them sit all year? Just let it go? Like put it out in October?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I did last year. I was after a big one. I mean, some of them,
yeah, you were.
Like on my own place, yeah, they run year round. Public land, generally, I mean, if I'm putting them out now, I might move them around a little bit in the fall, to scrapes or different trails. But as a rule, most of them now won't come in till March. Get through the seasons, and I move them around here and there, but. Usually March when the shed hunters, everything's open, I try to get them because there's so much intel on them. You got a lot of people start going out in the woods February, March shed hunting, and I would hate to lose 6 months of intel. Data, or whatever from November till March. I try to keep an eye on most of my cameras. If I kill a buck like I did this year early, November 5th, then I just saturated the areas with cameras and just let them sit. If I'm hunting, if I don't get a buck till the end of November, middle of November, I'll check, especially I know where there's big ones. I'll check them here and there, walk through. It makes it tough because lots of times I sit all day, but if they're along creeks or when I access into different stand locations, I'll check them. But if I kill a deer early, like I did this year, them cameras are sitting there. I might check them. I set a bunch and after I killed my buck, 1st of November there, 5th, and I set a whole bunch back in there. And I think I went back in after I shot my buck after Christmas, and we put out some more cameras. And I did check some of them, because I was back there, but I just put cards back in and they just sat and soaked. There isn't nothing better than, letting cameras just soak up information. My biggest worry is somebody will steal all that information. I'd rather, people take your card sometimes, and I would rather lose a camera than a damn card with so much information. Say I got a 200-inch buck on camera. Now you don't know this guy that stole my card or camera. He could be blabbering to everybody in the county that there's this big deer back there. So I've been taking more time to select my camera spot, especially in that time of year where they're sitting soaking, and try to get them up in trees. And it's a big chess game. Just try to keep them from not getting stolen, and hopefully you're in the right spots and everything. That's why I kind of put so many cameras out, in case a couple malfunction or batteries go dead. That's another thing. Lithium batteries, I would never use nothing else. In the summertime, kind of some on my own place, I might run some regular batteries, but usually my public land areas are always lithium. That way I don't have to worry about them going dead. Lithium will put up to the extreme temperatures. I always knew lithium good. And then the Chad Sylvester from Exodus Cameras, I listened to him and I've met him a few times, and that they had blogs and different stuff on the different batteries, and I didn't realize that, lithium batteries don't freeze where the, how do you say that? Alkaline batteries, those will actually, at a certain temperature, 10 degrees, whatever, that they're water-based, so they actually freeze. And I wondered why years ago, a lot of my cameras would just die right out, new batteries, because Iowa, we have some pretty extreme temperatures. And I run nothing but lithium, and I put them out in November. They'll still be going 90% of them come March. So then usually I pull all my cameras then, and, by March, afraid of shed hunters and, do my inventory and clean them up.
So you don't necessarily have a particular method to your madness. You sort of do it all. It sounds like you're putting them on scrapes. Sounds like you're putting them on creek crossings. Trails, you're trying to maximize the amount of information by getting as many trail cameras as you can afford to run and buy in as many spots as you can. And how do you keep track of them all, man?
Well, I used to run traps. I was a big trapper for years, so I got used to, you don't want to lose a expensive trap either. So I don't know. I'm so in tune with the environment, I guess. I remember, but something I started doing actually just the last 2-3 weeks. I did a little bit last fall too, last winter. I started more, but this year, and it was kind of random last winter. This year, I've been marking everything. I got Ozonics map, and just an amazing app. That's the one I choose. And I can go into, I mark, if I put a camera, I mark that spot and you go in your icons, you can mark it as a camera, and there's different colors. My cameras are like a blue color, and then even February, March,
hold on,
tree stands come on maps.
So back up. Maybe you can educate me. Did you say you're able to change the color of the waypoint? Or
yeah, yep, yeah. Like my Onyx maps, you.
Okay, let me. We're going to call this segment of the podcast "Lessons with Scott." Okay,
yeah.
So I've got my app open, and it's loading up here. And if I were going to mark where I'm at right now, and I think just about everybody, if you don't have Onyx maps, you're certainly in the minority, and you probably
exactly. They're so useful.
Right. So you're gonna go to Map Tools, right, and then you're going to. Add a waypoint.
I mark my spot.
Mark my location.
I just mark my location, and then that waypoint will drop there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hit edit, I think edit. The three little dots. I hit edit.
Yep.
And your thing pops up, and there's it has.
Well, when the hell did that change?
There's a color. Yep, I mark my tree stand camera, and then so I keep things situated. Underneath there's a color code. So like all my cameras, I did blue. All my tree stand locations, I pre-mark. Me and my son do a lot of stuff together. This February, March, we picked out a lot of different tree stand locations, and we'd mark them with a tree stand and then black. That way I don't have to try to, on your map, I don't have, my eyes are getting bad because of age, and I don't have to see what the little symbols are. I got them all color coded. My cameras are blue. My tree stands are black. And I even got into the footpaths this year, marking my footpaths in and out of different areas, which is just some of them huge areas, some huge forested areas. I'm starting to, into these tree stand locations I got picked out.
Right.
I got a footpath so I can get in and out. Yep. I always carry the compass as a backup. You never rely on your phone 100%. I always carry a compass.
Right.
And, if you get caught in a thunderstorm, you can't have your phone out, or I carry Ziploc bags to put my phone in case it does rain, because you're in the middle of nowhere. You just can't rely on that phone. You better have a backup to get out in the dark,
right.
If you're not familiar. But yeah, that Onyx it's been incredible. I can mark scrapes on it. Another thing for scrapes, and you can actually make them another color. So, when you got all these marks on the map, that's why that color, I just discovered that a couple weeks ago. And, it just ain't a bunch of waypoints on you. You could see your tree stand, see your cameras, see your scrape from last year. It's pretty slick. Color code them all, so it's easier when that map pops up.
No kidding.
Know what they are.
That's really slick. I didn't know that was there. So that would, if Todd were still here, he would be yet again absolutely absolutely ecstatic that modern technology has found a way into his world again. I miss that guy. Yeah, I do too. It'll be in, I don't know. It's been a crappy year so far, but hopefully
I didn't know him like you guys did, but from the few times we met in podcast, he was just so genuine. I couldn't imagine the pain some of you guys feel that were real close to him.
Well, there you have it, my conversation with Mr. Scott Buckley. Scott, thanks for taking the time out of your evening to sit down and talk with us about deer hunting and also a little bit about Todd. Todd definitely is missed, and we appreciate all the love and support that we've got from the hunting community and the white knuckle community, and just the whole white knuckle team appreciates all the support that we get, not just back in February and early March there, but also even today we get notes all the time and emails and phone calls, and all of them are appreciated. So thanks so much, Scott, for mentioning it, and thanks to all of you for the support. With that, I'll begin to close out the show today. I just wanted to let everybody know, if you haven't heard or seen on any of our social media channels, that Ozonics has a brand new unit out this year. It's called the Orion. Go to their website. They've got a great video on it, and they've got all the new specs. And, of course, they are factory ship direct, and you can buy one right there at www.ozonicshunting.com. I'll be anxious to get one in my hands here shortly and play with it along with the rest of the guys on the team. So we'll give you a report as soon as it becomes available. I guess that's all I've got for this week. Jason out.